Hi guys, my name is Yusuf,
And my name is Haidar.
and today for our podcast we will be doing about hybrid cars, and our podcast name is...
The Common Ground Podcast.
Okay, perfect. So let us start off with the introduction. It's going to be hybrid versus electric.
So, just a little bit of a background when it comes to electrifying vehicles. This is something that have evolved in nature when it comes to automobile industry, particularly as we are trying to reduce the impacts of climate change. What that basically means is that we are attempting to find ways to know exactly what makes electric cars better than the other forms of green vehicles. When I say green vehicles, I'm specifically talking about diesel-powered vehicles, hybrids, and obviously the electric cars that will be in a automobile market by 2030. Just to give you a little bit of a head up, when it comes to the difference between a hybrid and electric car, hybrid cars they use both an internal combustion engine and an electric motor to propel the vehicle, with the electric motor assisting the engine or taking over at low speeds. Electric cars, on the other hand, use only electric motors powered by batteries with no internal combustion engine to drive the vehicle. Both types of cars use regenerative braking to capture energy during deceleration, which is stored in the battery for later use. The source I got this information is the Motor Trend, and it basically talks about what differentiates the hybrids with the electric vehicles. And what do you see yourself when it comes to moving towards the future of automobile?
I personally think it's a good and a bad thing. Because at the end of the day, we do have a community where people love gas cars, of course. People don't want to let that go because of the sound it produces, for example, with the exhaust system. A lot of people are very passionate about this. And I feel like it's very hard for some people to let go of that. I know personally a couple of friends who don't want to get rid of that since that's what they love, that's their passion. And at the end of the day, exhaust kind of symbolizes the power and the stature towards the car, and they feel like it's not worth leaving it. That is because they don't have climate change in mind. For me personally, I personally love electric and gas-powered cars. I think they're both very beautiful in their own ways, and they are amazing. But anyways, going back towards the podcast, we are going to be looking towards the Panamera E-Hybrid versus the Porsche Taycan.
So this is not just any specific model. This is like the utmost highest model of the Porsche in their lineup. So it's going to be the Turbo S version of the Taycan and the Turbo S E-Hybrid for the Panamera.
Yeah.
So just before I like to get started on the technical aspects, I just wanted to emphasize the fact that when it comes to the proposal that was highlighted by the United Nations, it talked about various aspects on how electric cars should be on the road to certain extent of time, especially by 2030, where all electric cars on the road and all electric cars being produced on specific automakers must be purely electric, and it can't be gasoline-powered vehicle under any circumstances, even if it's a hybrid. I'm sorry to say this, but unfortunately it can't happen.
It's not enough.
It's not an option for them to utilize gasoline-powered vehicles because we're phasing out of this era.
Okay. Anyways, if I can get started. So, The Porsche Panamera E-Hybrid and the Porsche Taycan. Obviously, there is an electric range between both cars. Obviously, the Taycan is fully electric, so the range for that is a lot higher than the Porsche Panamera E-Hybrid.
That makes sense because when it comes to the battery aspect of the Panamera, the Turbo S E-Hybrid specifically features a 17.9 kilowatt lithium-ion battery pack that provides an all-electric range of up to 14 miles, which kind of makes sense because being a hybrid cars, you would expect the battery to be much shorter than the electric counterparts.
I do, in fact, think it's kind of misleading because when you think of hybrid, you also think of electric. And the fact that it's mainly powered by gasoline, like, I don't personally consider it a hybrid car because, let's be honest, 14 kilometers, 14 miles, it's not enough to be considered as a hybrid car. I would expect, like, half and half, or at least somewhat close towards that range. But anyways, going back towards the Porsche Taycan by itself can go up to 282 miles. All electric, of course.
So when it comes to the powertrain, yes, when it comes to utilizing the engine and the electric motors at the same time, I would say that the Panamera is specifically utilizing the engine more than the electric range. And the reason why is because the hybrid features a powertrain that combines a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 engine with an electric motor. Together, these components produce a total output of 689 horsepower and 642 pound-feet of torque. So when it comes to the combination of power that is utilized by the gasoline-powered engine and the electric, it's more like 80% of the power coming from the gasoline-powered engine. So you're expecting like 550 horsepower and only 110 horsepower coming from the electric motors.
Yeah, but anyways, simply what has been said, because I know it's a bit complex, basically with electric cars, they accelerate faster, but they don't have a top speed, unlike compared to a gas-powered and a hybrid car. They have a higher top speed than the electric cars.
I just wanted to emphasize the fact that, yes, when it comes to the acceleration of electric vehicles, even though they accelerate much, much faster, their limit of their top speed is much lower. And this is probably due to the fact that there is an inhibition of speed that is in place by the Porsche system. Do you know the electronic inhibitors that German cars use to prohibit cars going beyond their speed limits? Like, for example, the Mercedes S65 AMG. The car is capable of accelerating until 330 kilometers per hour, but the speed limiter only makes it capable of reaching only 250 kilometers per hour. So I would say that even though the Porsche Taycan does have a disadvantage when it comes to the top speed, I would say that more of it is likely due to the speed inhibitor that is in place from the German automaker. But when it comes to the Panamera Turbo S E-Hybrids, I would say that the inhibitor of the speed is limited to 320 kilometers per hour. This is probably due to the fact that the car itself is specifically designed for racetrack, even though it's four-door sedan.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if you are comparing Mercedes and Porsche, Porsche is more of a brand that caters towards racing compared to Mercedes. Mercedes is also for racing. You can consider that, but at the end of the day, it caters also more towards luxury compared to Porsche. Porsche is mainly for the track. It's a lot. I would say, personally, I'm a bit biased, better towards that aspect of the car. But at the end of the day, I guess you could say, I think Porsche is more comfortable towards their capabilities and their mindset towards the cars, which is why they added the limiter much higher at much higher speeds, because I feel like it can take that speed without, of course, breaking down, having some issues. Unlike Mercedes, I feel like they're not too comfortable with that, and especially the fact that they are reliable, but I feel like they are not reliable to reach the point of 330 kilometers in the S65 AMG. Because imagine going that fast in that car.
Yes, being more of a luxury-oriented cars, like for example, the S-Class is based on the utmost luxury sedan. I would say that it can be used for different purpose than having it to be utilized for racetrack purposes, or even for the purpose of being entertained with having a high-speed car. I just wanted to emphasize the fact that when it comes to the idea of where Porsche is heading in terms of its marketing tactic, yes, it's safe to say that Porsche as a brand is more catered towards performance, because let's be honest, when you look at any Porsche cars, they are specifically designed in an architecture that is catered towards racetracks. Like, for example, a low hood, a bigger wheels compared to any other vehicles on the road, as well as the aerodynamic aspects of each single Porsche models. Like, for example, the SUV Porsche, I forgot the name of it.
The Macan or the Cayenne?
Both of them. It's the Macan and the Cayenne. Even though these SUVs are supposedly for off-roading and even for the purpose of using them on the roads, if you look at the aerodynamic aspect of these cars, I would say that
they're miles ahead of their competitors towards the SUV market. That's for sure. But at the end of the day, I think let's get back on track and discuss 0 to 60.
Oh, yeah, that part is like super insane when it comes to electric vehicles. I would have to stress the fact that
I think it's 2.6 seconds, 0 to 60, which is basically 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. I think it's 2.6 seconds for the Taycan.
The Porsche Taycan Turbo S, the company claims that it does 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds.
Wow.
But actually, when you take it on a road and do 0 to 60, the car actually does 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds.
2.3?
2.3 seconds.
Wow.
The same thing applies with the Porsche Panamera Turbo S E-Hybrid, but it's nowhere as quick as the Taycan.
Which is
like,
what,
for
3?
example, yeah, exactly. But when it comes to testing out the vehicle itself, the car can actually do 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds.
Wow.
Which
That's
is
nice.
actually the same acceleration from 0 to 60 as the Lamborghini Aventador. So just coming back to the point of the technical aspects of the cars, I just wanted to summarize that when it comes to the powertrain, the engine of the Porsche Panamera Turbo S is pretty much based on the VW engine, which is the same type of engine that you would see on the Bentley Continental GT.
And do you know why that is? I can explain to you why that is. Because Porsche is owned by the Volkswagen Group. Bentley is also owned by the Volkswagen Group, and so is Audi, and so is many other car brands.
Yeah, like for those of you who don't know, there are 5 automakers that belongs to the Volkswagen Group. It's Porsche, Audi, Lamborghini, Bentley, and obviously Volkswagen itself.
Yeah.
Also the Bugatti, because
the Peugeot.
When it comes to the Bugatti, like their engines are W16 platform, but you wouldn't see any other Volkswagen Group utilizing that specific engine for W16. So what they basically do is that they utilize the V8 engines, the 4-liter V8 engine from the Audi. They reassemble it to make it a W16 platform. So you have a V8 engine and another V8 engine. You combine them, reassemble them. You have the W16 of a Bugatti Veyron or a Bugatti Chiron, let's say.
Double this power.
Yeah. I just wanted to stress the fact that when it comes to the powertrain,
I think there are 7 powertrains, all electric for Taycan, and I think it's 3 hybrid powertrains for the Panamera E-Hybrid.
For the Panamera, we have 4. I would say that the Turbo S is one of the top of the range. There's an average turbo model. There's
Of course, if you have all those electric motors, of course you're going to get all that power and all that performance.
Of course, but at the same time, when it comes to the hybrid version of the Panamera, specifically the Turbo S, obviously you would expect more power compared to the average Panamera Turbo S. But at the same time, when it comes to the models that are available for that specific Panamera, I would say that you have like 4 different models. You have the Turbo S hybrid and the non-hybrid version, of course. You have the Turbo, which is the average. It makes a little bit less power compared to the Turbo S. You have the GTS as well as the 4S version. Some markets, including the Chinese markets and the German markets, they do offer the standardized Porsche Panamera, which is just a Porsche Panamera without a specific name into it. But you would barely see that in the GCC markets. So when it comes to the Porsche Taycan, obviously you have like 7 different type of powertrain.
Oh, there are many different types of Taycans, of course. And Panamera, there are many different types of models, of course. But if we're looking at the top end, I personally think Taycan wins. Like, it's the best car. Of course, as a daily, I think I'd pick the Panamera.
Okay, it wins at this moment of time. But first, I just wanted to briefly go through the technical aspects just a little bit quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
So, yes, when it comes to charging the Panamera Turbo S E-Hybrid, like, no pun intended, most of the time, the people who use these hybrid-powered vehicles, you wouldn't expect them to charge their vehicles and refuel it at the same time. So it does have an option to utilize the engine more than the hybrids, more than like both of them. So this can be an option for that. Like, you can utilize just one powertrain instead of both, which is somewhat of a disadvantage because especially when it comes to the performance, like, you would expect 2 powertrains to be functioning at the same time. You would need your battery to be full and the fuel tank to be full at the same time. So when it comes to the handling, the Panamera Turbo S E-Hybrid features the Porsche Active Suspension Management System, which uses adaptive dampers to provide a smooth ride and excellent handling. It also features the Porsche Dynamic Classic Control and the Porsche Torque Vectoring Plus for enhanced stability and control. It's the same type of technology that is implemented on the Porsche Taycan Turbo S, but you are talking about torque vectoring, meaning that when it comes to the steering wheel, you would expect the front wheel to steer while you're steering the wheel, of course, but also for the performance, at times during the performance, the rear wheels will slightly move at the opposite direction in which the front wheels are moving, just so that it can turn at a much better turn or a much better
Radius.
turning radius. Yes.
Yes.
So overall, when it comes to the technical aspects, sorry to interrupt, the Porsche Panamera Turbo S E-Hybrid offers a range of technical features, like just a gasoline-powered vehicle, or it can be both, like a hybrid, for example, and even a diesel in that nature. That makes it powerful and high-performance luxury sedan with impressive efficiency and advanced technology. Can you please try to say exactly what you're trying to say?
Yes, I was trying to say, when it comes to handling, Porsche is, like, nothing beats the handling of a Porsche car. Like, if you compare it to a Mercedes, an Audi, a BMW.
Pretty much compared to all German automakers, I would have to give the upper hand to the Porsche.
Yes, 100%.
Because these people, they have been focusing on racetracks and driving for almost 50 years.
Oh yeah, of course.
So that's why they would evolve
They have
to get better.
Yeah, they have the most history compared to all the German automakers when creating a car. That's why a lot of people, say that they're the best German automakers in the country. And some people would go as far to say that it's the best car brand that exists. And I honestly don't blame them. Personally, I think the exact same thing. I was fortunate enough to be able to drive a Porsche, and I can tell you from experience, I will never be able to forget it, first of all. And second of all, no other car has ever became close to it. Maybe except for a Mercedes. A BMW I've driven, I don't like it that much. An Audi I have not driven, but and a Volkswagen I have. The Golf, it's nice, it's beautiful. The Golf is like a 911 in a
hatchback.
Yeah, in a hatchback, which is really nice. But nothing beats a Porsche. And honestly, with the handling work, it's amazing. It's amazing, especially in the 911 series. Taycan I have not driven yet. Panamera I have, but not the hybrid version. The Panamera is wonderful. It has so much power. It is a very heavy car, though, I'll have to say. And the Taycan is not that much of a heavy car. It has a lot of space.
If I have to interrupt you for 1 second, when it comes to the Porsche Panamera that you specifically test drove, which model is it?
I think it was the Panamera S, 2018.
So pretty much any models from 2018 to 2023, which is current year, they're pretty much the same. Is that the first statement?
They are very similar, to be fair. With cars, if you compare a Ford F-150 2018 to a Ford F-150 to 2019, the only real difference you'll be getting is the media system inside the car. Literally, that's the only difference you'll be getting. In terms of performance, it's very similar. Maybe it's a bit faster, but you're not losing that much. But at the end of the day, it is very similar. If you say it's a Nissan Patrol, if you say 911, all the different cars, there's no immediate change. The change happens over time. So over the course of 5 years, the car you have right now, compared to how it will look like in 5 years and how it will be like and how it will feel like in terms of driving, it might be completely different over time. With the change will show. But in
actually, just coming back to your point you made about the Ford F-150. Yes, the 2018 model is pretty much the same platform that is currently on the market, but I would like to stress the fact that when it comes to the F-150 from 2016 and previous models, they utilized 5-liter V8 engines, whereas the models from 2017 and above is a 3.5 twin-turbo V6. But fortunately, it makes more power, and for that purpose, it is actually used as a way to reduce the
carbon footprint.
Exactly, the carbon footprint.
Anyways,
and obviously the power.
Anyways, shall we go to pros and cons? I will be saying some pros and some cons, and so will you. Let me start off. So Taycan, it's good because it uses electricity, but also you can argue it is. But you can also argue the point that it's bad, because how do we get that energy? By burning fossil fuels. So some people may say it's actually the opposite, but it depends how you get that energy. It could be from renewable energy, for example, solar panels, which is really good. But for hybrid, I mean, it does use gas. It uses gas more than electricity. So it's kind of misleading there as a con for the Panamera. And the Panameras to this day still has V8s, no?
They still do have V8s.
And the fact that it has V8, we could say that it is leaving a much higher carbon footprint, and it's terrible, especially the fact that everyone is moving towards smaller engines due to the fact that becoming more self-conscious towards the carbon footprint that they're leaving behind. And at the end of the day, I think that the fact that it's still using V8 is very disappointing, as there are other car manufacturers, for example, Mercedes, they stopped producing V8s for the Mercedes C63, for example. They stopped producing V8s at all. So now they have V6s and also four-cylinder cars. So that's what I don't give towards Porsche and Panamera. The fact that they are not being mindful towards the fact that they're still producing V8s, although other competitors stopped doing that. And they are much more worryful towards their carbon footprint that they're leaving behind. And especially the fact that gas is becoming a more of a limited resource. I mean, they're not being mindful, but of course you can argue the fact that they are being mindful because they are creating electric cars, like for example the Taycan. But anyways, the Taycan I personally think is better. I'm pretty sure you think the Panamera is better, no?
Well, I would like to emphasize the fact that when it comes to the power output of the Porsche Taycan, this car actually makes 761 horsepower, whereas the ones that I'm defending, which is a hybrid Panamera Turbo S, it only makes 690 horsepower. So you do have a power advantage. And
or you have a top speed advantage.
We do have a top speed advantage, but at the same time, your acceleration is much, like you are much faster compared to any forms of engines. Like the electric vehicles would have to take the upper hand when it comes to the performance.
Yeah, and I also think for when it comes towards luxury, I mean, I've sat in both cars. I personally would feel that I think the Panamera is better when it comes towards luxury, because the Taycan, yes, it has a nice media system, and a lot of space. But at the end of the day, I feel like it lacks a lot of other things. Like, yes, they're just charging ports, but I feel like the Panamera has more of a better feel when it comes towards the materials that is being used towards producing the Panamera.
Well, exactly. It's just the fact that when it comes to building a Porsche Panamera, the car practically existed for almost 13 years. And the Porsche Taycan was just released back in 2019, which is barely 4 years. So I would say that when it comes to the materials and when it comes to the components of building a four-door luxury sedan, I would say that the Panamera have the upper hand when it comes to the materials which are used.
Yeah, I would say that because of the fact that the Taycan is more towards, caters more towards the performance, and the Panamera caters more towards luxury. It simply as this luxury Panamera over Taycan any day.
So coming back to the point that I made about the Porsche Panamera and its technical features, I would like to wrap it up with the pros and cons, and then eventually we had to pick a decider on which car is the winner.
Okay.
So pros versus cons. I would like to emphasize the fact that the Panamera, just like any other automakers, are phasing out of the gasoline-powered vehicles, which is why you have the hybrid option for that specific model. And I just wanted to emphasize the fact that when it comes to moving towards the sustainability, many people think that electric vehicles are sustainable compared to other forms of green vehicles like diesel or hybrid powered vehicles, but this is not necessarily true. I wouldn't get to the technical aspects about why this is not the case, but I will perhaps leave more information, and there's a link behind the description of the video, and you can find out yourself regarding why electric cars can be somewhat more of a hype compared to a hybrid or a diesel-powered vehicles. So coming back to the point I made about the Panamera, I would like to start off with the cons. So basically, you have a higher cost compared to a non-hybrid Panamera Turbo S model, which is unfortunate. Even
You have
when
to pay more.
You
for
have
the
to pay more?
for the hybrid version.
Yeah, which is why I said higher cost compared to a non-hybrid version. And with that, you also get an additional weight due to the hybrid components, which makes the acceleration to some extent a bit slower compared to the average hybrid Panamera Turbo S, which is a non-hybrid
Because
version.
it adds more weight. No.
Exactly, because it adds more weight. But some specifications offers the hybrid version with more power output. Like, for example, we have the 690 horsepower in this comparison.
Yeah.
The standardized version of the Turbo S hybrid is 630 brake horsepower.
May I do the cons of the Taycan, if you don't mind?
I thought you already wrapped it up, but you can
I mean,
still do it.
there are still some that I didn't finish up. So just to wrap it up with the
Okay.
Taycan, the higher costs compared to non-electric Porsche models. There's a limited driving range compared to the gas-powered vehicles. It's a lot more less rangeful, I guess you could say, compared to gas-powered vehicles. And it has longer recharging times compared to other electric cars, especially Panamera, since it only doesn't take that much electricity. And it is a heavier weight due to the fact that it has a battery pack. And there's limited availability when it comes towards charging infrastructure within the country and globally, actually, which also you might have to struggle. So you would be able to, you wouldn't be able to take a Taycan for a long road trip just yet, especially since we're in the fourth generation towards a Taycan, as this is the fourth year, the fourth model that's coming out. Now, for the current and future trends towards towards Porsche is moving towards more electric, we could say that. But I feel like they are going to be stopping making the V8s, as Porsche, as we know from the past, they are always late towards the trends. Like they didn't add Apple CarPlay until later on, compared to other cars, and because of that, I feel like they would reduce their carbon footprint by creating V8s, and they will be more mindful towards their carbon footprint. And they're moving and shifting towards more eco-friendly cars.
So German automakers, not just for Porsche, like for all German automakers in general, they're moving towards the electric future. I just wanted to emphasize the cons of the Panamera just very quickly. So obviously the higher cost compared to a non-hybrid version, the additional weight, even despite the fact that you're paying a lot more, which makes the acceleration and the top speed limit much lower compared to a non-hybrid version. And there's a limited to all electric driving range compared to dedicated electric vehicles. There's a complex powertrain system that may require additional maintenance and repairs. Now, we all know this for the fact that when it comes to maintaining German vehicles, it's not as...
It's pricey. It's very pricey.
Even the maintenance costs and the times you have to do it is much higher compared to Japanese automakers. Like, for example, my father had a 2007 Toyota Camry, and not even a single time it had any technical issues, and this car lasted for a good 10 years. So coming back to the point of the Panamera, there is a limited availability of charging infrastructure for plug-in hybrid vehicles. So coming back to the point I made about the size of the battery, the Taycan takes the upper hand. The reason why is because the battery is much, much bigger compared to the hybrid counterparts. So what do you have to say on that?
Well, I mean, let's wrap it up and just make a decision for the winner. I personally think right now, if you ask me what would I get, a Porsche or a Panamera, I would much rather still get a Taycan. No, get a Taycan than over a Panamera. But obviously, I feel like that's not realistic since I feel like it's not a realistic car for a daily right now, especially with the market. And the fact that it's very early on in the stages in the development of the electric cars. So I'd go for the Panamera, but later in the future, no doubt, I would prefer a Taycan over a Panamera. So I think for right now, in this day and age, the Panamera wins, but later in the future, I don't know how long it will take, the Taycan wins. I'm pretty sure you can agree with me on that.
I have to agree on you on that one. And this is probably due to the fact that when it comes to the announcement that is made by various German automakers, specifically Porsche, Porsche has announced that it plans to become the leader in electromobility, and it is investing heavily in developing electric and hybrid vehicles. But like you said, the future is more directed towards the electrifying the all models of the
Including
Porsche.
the 911. Anyways,
By the way, when it comes to the Porsche 911, all versions will be electrified. I hate to say this, but one of your friends is a big Porsche fan of the 911 GT3, maybe?
I'm a big Porsche fan of the 911 series.
I think it's Ibrahim. He's the one who said that he is a big fan of the Porsche 911 GT3. I'm sorry to say this, but unfortunately, they will be moving towards electrifying the GT3, especially the GT3 RS, and nothing can be done about that.
Well, let's see what the future has in store. Anyways, I would like to say thank you for listening to our podcast.
I would like to say thank you for the podcast as well. It's been almost 25 minutes?